Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of What Does My Therapist Really Think? The podcast where we go on the other side of the chair and explore topics for clinicians and mental health clients alike. Hello, everybody. I'm Katie Roletto.
And I'm Andrea Piazza.
And we are here for our very first episode. Andy, if I may call you Andy. Andrea is your usted, I guess, as we like to call it. But your clinician name is Andrea, but I know you as my friend Andy. Why don't we talk a little bit about who you are? Who's Andrea Piazza?
Well, if you have to ask, I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor or licensed professional counselor, depending on what state we are in. I am trained to provide mental health services, just talking, no pills. My specialties really are PTSD and neurodivergence, so ADHD and autism. However, I'm doing less and less therapy and more of running a mental health business. So that's a little bit of my basics, my acronyms.
Amazing. And I have less acronyms. I'm just a comedian. I'm based out of Los Angeles, and but also I'm an avid therapy goer when the system is in my favor and I can afford it, which is one of the many topics that we're going to talk about in this podcast. So I would love to give a little bit of backstory. Andy, you came up with this company, DreaVita, and I would just kind of love to kind of paint the picture for everybody about what the mission is of DreaVita and how it's going to feed into what we're going to talk about here.
So DreaVita really came from being in the rut of the system after a few years, trying a few different ways, trying the private practice route, trying the working for a big giant therapy or mental health company route, trying to work in the C-suite, being the director of programs and realizing like, okay, from the bottom to the top, nothing here is really working. What do we do? So DreaVita was really all about doing things differently. So I spent several years just sort of researching what would work, what people really wanted, what's really wrong. And through all of that, put together DreaVita, which I think solves some of the problems in this very, very delicate thing we call a mental health system.
What are the things that you were observing? Because I think what I love about this is that you saw things that are upsetting. And I think that we all know, right? Like, this isn't a secret. The system is always working against us, and it seems so simple and it makes you want to go nuts. But you saw opportunities for ways to actually fix it. Not it, but some things, right?
It is kind of an it, though. It is kind of like a scary monster that's supposed to help you, and you're not sure if it's gonna. So some of the things that I saw were really wrong is patients are coming and going and coming and going and sometimes not getting better, and that's awful, and there's got to be something more we can do. And then really saw providers themselves suffering, and one of the reasons patients are coming and going is they can't stick with their therapist, or now their insurance changed, they can't see the same provider, so why come back and have to tell your story again? Or now your insurance changed and you suddenly can't afford it, and now the therapist can't see you, and just this whole back and forth, totally system level problem. The system is designed for people to burn out. It's designed, unfortunately, to keep people sicker because that's the best way to make money, is to have people sick and have them have a need that they can get from you and you can charge more and more money for. And that just made me kind of mad and sad. I have that big sister energy. I really want to protect everyone. I worked in hospitals on integrated health teams with physicians and physical therapists and social workers, and it was amazing, but it was kind of a nightmare at the same time. And there were treadmills in all of the student lounges or where the doctors were supposed to hang out because it was an expectation that the doctors never went home. They slept there. They didn't have time to go to the gym. They would just walk a little bit before seeing their next patient. And that just kind of drove me crazy. Like, I don't understand why we would expect healers who are sick themselves to have anything left to give to others.
Kind of like a Google mentality, but without the Google paycheck.
Oh, yes.
Google has daycare and they have car wash and have like a dry cleaner.
Yeah.
But you guys get treadmills.
Yeah, no daycare for therapists, usually not a 401k or anything like that, but treadmills and, maybe a cot. Just so you can stay there as long as possible. Yeah. So fancy.
Wow. Yeah. So what are you doing at DreaVita to address this? Like what steps are you taking that are different than how other people are approaching it?
It's pretty basic, but somehow like a total paradigm shift. So while we absolutely seek to provide excellent care and very accessible care to patients, we believe that the best care starts with supporting our providers. So we've put a ton of infrastructure into providing an ethical workplace, trying to make caseloads more manageable, making sure people have access to benefits, they're paid well, they're paid more regularly, with that being the theory that that's going to create a better healthcare experience for the patients.
And that makes a lot of sense. That feels like a very simple solution is treat mental health workers nice, treat them nice, treat them just nice. I mean, just really, it feels like sort of just the basics to be paid on time and to have a workable load.
And it is very challenging. Our system of like how work is set up here in the States also makes it very hard to do this. So it's a lot of creative work and risk taking to make the system work and to try and get it to scale. But thankfully, we're doing it. We have incredible providers who really believe in the mission and give us their time, give us their healing energy. And if you think about it, the healers themselves are the foundation. If you're not taking care of the foundation, everything else crumbles. Everyone else's health and
Yeah.
wellness is built on top of that. So it should be really basic, but for some reason it's not. We want our providers to be happy and healthy and have time to go to the gym if they want, not in the building.
Right. Go on your own treadmill of your choosing.
Yeah, at a fun treadmill at LA
Yeah.
Fitness, maybe, or somewhere better,
Yeah.
probably. Just kidding. We love you, LA Fitness.
No. Hey, if LA Fitness would like to be a sponsor for this
Yes,
podcast,
yes.
yeah.
Treadmills elsewhere, LA Fitness.
Yeah, we will endorse your treadmills.
Yes.
So, with all of this, I guess the big question is why do people that you know, why do your colleagues work in mental health knowing that you're working against a system that's, is really trying to do more harm than good?
I don't think anybody gets into mental health really to make money, unfortunately. You get in it for the love of the game. You're that friend that like everyone comes to talk to, or you've been through something yourself and you want to walk by someone else as they're going through their journey. And it's an incredible privilege to know people in this way and to be there to bear witness to some of their darkest moments. It's a lot to carry, but it's very fulfilling. I think that's why most people get into this business. And then most people stay because it continues to be fulfilling. But a lot of people leave just because it's truly not sustainable. And that's a real shame. That loss of knowledge and expertise and kindness and warmth is something we should all be trying to prevent.
As a person who has not gone through this experience, but just putting myself in the perspective of, I love this. I have gone to school for this. I have gotten my master's in this. I have gotten licensed in this. I've put in hours to train in this. I have found a job to do this. I mean, that is years and years and years of work and just also gathering the real world expertise to get good at it. And it seems like by the time that happens, you're out of gas. And it's really heartbreaking because the intention is really just to put more good in the world. And if you're out of gas, you're out of gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. So there's this really, really famous therapist. He's passed now. Anyway, his name's Carl Rogers. His whole idea is you got to hold hope for people, right? If you can't hold hope for them, you can't be a good therapist. And I think when you kind of get beat down by the system yourself as a therapist, it can be harder and harder to hold that hope. And that's when people, I think, really turn away from this career. And it doesn't need to happen. It's preventable. So DreaVita is working to prevent it and help us all hold hope as long as we can, or hold it for each other if you can't hold it for yourself. But that way we're not also alone in it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to have hope because I'm holding on by a thread for one. It's just a little bit of hope. No, I'm kidding. I'm doing great. What we're here to spread a little bit of knowledge of is what does it really like to be a therapist? Really, what is it really like to work in mental health? Kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. I find it very interesting that the idea of them having lives and struggles and questions on their own end, I think is on one hand really healthy for us to understand because that's how we're going to be able to help the helpers. But I think for some people it's a little scary, right? It's a little bit scary to admit that, oh no, my therapist might not might have their own struggles. Oh no, like why is that such a scary thought for us to think about?
Yeah, it's really strange. This is ever so slightly off topic, but I will bring it back. I think sometimes it depends on the field of mental health you're in. If you're going to substance use counseling, you almost certainly want someone who struggled with substance use. But if you're going to eating disorder therapy, you don't want somebody to have an eating disorder. You don't want them to have that. It kind of can put you in a box. You're already in a box as a therapist. You got to be good. You got to have it all together. The world's crumbling around you, but you can't be the one that's sad about it, even though you are human. And then you go into these smaller and smaller niches, and your box can kind of get smaller and smaller about what you can or should or shouldn't be or talk about. And it is very challenging.
What is it about that relatability that makes it more successful rather than someone who's never struggled with substance abuse?
I think there's sort of things you can't put into words that you just need somebody to get sometimes. And if somebody else hasn't been down that road, you don't know if they can help you. Most often, when people come in and they want to know your background or they want to know what you've been through, if they want to know, what they're almost always asking is, can you help me? And with substance use, it's very particular. Your whole brain has, been overtaken and rewired in this very specific way. And if somebody hasn't experienced that at some level, it's very understandable that you might not believe or trust them to be the ones to help you.
That's very interesting because substance abuse also is kind of it could be, if you go to NA, that it's a communal
Hmm.
sort of experience in healing.
Yeah.
But what about if there's an eating disorder? Why would it not be helpful for someone who's experienced eating disorders to be your helper?
Eating disorders are very, very complex. I'm sure many people come into eating disorder care wanting somebody who has struggled similarly. However, in the community as a provider who treats eating disorders, it would be highly stigmatized to admit that you had an eating disorder yourself or were struggling. I think in some ways that can come from the competitive nature of eating disorders of like, if I need to get better, why don't you? You're tricking me. You're not even better.
Mm.
You'll never be better, so I'll never be better. Why would I trust you? That mentality. But it's just very different, like the subcultures within therapy. And then, like, you want a marriage and family provider who's definitely been married if you're going to do couples counseling, but you don't want someone's divorced, even though you might be getting a divorce. It's just like this weird thing. And I don't
Yeah.
even know that it's always from the patient side as much as it is like providers putting it on providers. It
Mm-hmm.
can just feel like a minefield sometimes.
Yeah, I could understand that if I was going to marriage counseling and my therapist was divorced. You could look at it like, all right, well, you had to do the thing I don't want to do,
Yeah.
or you knew when to call it quits to move on.
Yep.
So,
Yep. It's all about perspective. And ultimately it is like, is that person going to be able to help me? And
yeah.
how much our personal experiences play into or don't play into our clinical expertise is also totally fascinating. That could be an episode in its own right.
I think one of the biggest questions I have for anybody who's any sort of healthcare provider, I always wonder, how do you stay caring but also protect that boundary a little bit where you're not going home thinking about all the really sad or tough. I don't know. I'm sure not everything's sad and tough, and think some things probably just plain boring, maybe sometimes, or annoying, or whatever. Because you're a human and you have those interactions with other people. Like, how do you tote that line of caring because you got into this line of work because you care,
Mm-hmm.
and not letting it take over?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And shout out to University of Central Florida. That's one of the first things they kind of introduce to you is how to set these boundaries and making a self-care plan and sticking to a self-care plan. And I think they were very generous in that they told us like burnout is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. And this is just like, what are you going to do about it? As opposed to like if you burn out, it's a personal failing, which I think can be taught a lot. But when you start out, you do kind of take everything home. Things really sit with you and they really eat away at you. And then the more mature you sort of get in your practice and in this field, the easier it is to keep patients in their file, in their patient file. And I've moved on, and now my next patient needs my full attention. Now I've moved on, my next patient needs my full attention. I've moved on, my partner needs my full attention, or I need my full attention. And almost doing those mindfulness practices, you might have your patient do like, oh, Jill's coming up. Oh, gonna help Jill with so and so. Oh, let me refocus on the pie I'm making. I wish I made pie, but you get the idea. And the more you take care of yourself, the easier it is to hold those cognitive boundaries together. I think the more stressed and depleted you get as a therapist, the thinner those walls kind of get, and the more you do end up taking home. And that might be when it's time to get your own help as well. All therapists, if you can afford it and have the resources, ideally should have their own therapists.
I don't know. I just think about my world where all of my friends are comedians at this point. I'm sure a lot of your friends, besides me, I know we're friends, but I'm sure a lot of your friends are clinicians. It's like, oh, I need to find one, but I can't use anybody I know. then you have to kind of go like on a friend of a friend of a friend. How does a therapist find therapy? Is it hard?
It's definitely hard. I think a lot of us end up at the same therapist. Brene Brown says, like, as a provider, you need somebody with like a high bullshit meter. And that is most certainly true. So I think a lot of us go to the same person and then they just have really good boundaries. They don't admit that they know so and so or anything like that, right? Telehealth definitely makes it easier. I think back in the day, when we were all on Zoom all the time, that was probably pretty awkward seeing your bestie in the waiting room with you, but it's not
Yes.
so bad nowadays.
Little side story. I used to work at a beauty company, a makeup company, and all the girls had the same therapist. They all had the same therapist and they all had the same acupuncturist. Those two ladies knew all of our office drama because they were also affordable.
Yeah, they're the ones in network with the insurance you all have. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And they did a sliding scale and, because we're all underpaid at this place. And
Yeah.
But I just was like, oh, this woman's notes. It's just all about how we're very annoyed about this mascara launch coming up.
Yeah. I collect friend groups too. It just happens that way sometimes, you know. You want to see who your friend likes.
You get to hear all sides of everything.
Yes.
I think that's one of the reasons I definitely a friend that people call.
For sure.
Because also I love human nature, which is why I love performing. I'm like, oh, could I do this? But I know I can't do it because I cannot keep a secret to myself. I can't keep a secret. I would have to, oh God, I'd have to tell everyone, oh my God, you know what this person said? And that's not kind of me, but that's just me being honest. How do you do that? How do you keep a secret? Like, how do you, oh man, because some of these things must be so juicy and interesting.
I think it really does feel like it's kind of like a sacred act sometimes, you know. It's bigger than you. Sometimes it is like, I would really love to process with somebody what I just experienced hearing, but most of the time it just feels like, yes, it's this sacred thing that's just between us, might not even go in the notes, you know, and it would feel like a betrayal of the soul to tell someone else.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as you would think most of the time. Every once in a while, you have to go to your therapist. You don't tell them your patient's name or anything and be like, I'm just having a really hard time making sense of X.
Yeah.
But other times you work with, really important people. It could be politicians, celebrities, lawyers. You're definitely not telling anybody what they say.
Yeah.
You want them to have the most protected, safe space, just as any other patient. So yeah, I don't know. It feels special in a way. You get to feel important because only you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Oh, I'm going to remember that next time someone tells me a secret. But as the person who is seeking the therapy, seeking the counseling, what can we do on our end to be supportive of our therapists? We're not here, obviously, like, it's not our job to fix problems that are out of our control. And I totally understand that. But are there certain things that you can keep in mind when you're seeking therapy to support your therapist in a way?
I say patients because I was trained in a medical model, but clients is supposed to be more empowering. So we might switch between the two, and there's nothing wrong with either.
It's what they call students now?
No, learners.
They call them scholars.
Oh, I want to be a scholar.
I want to be a scholar, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather be a student or a scholar?
That's way cooler. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it is cooler.
Well, first of all, yes, as Katie said, it's not your job to support your provider. But what you can do is just show appreciation. Unfortunately, even for us, the world of like Google reviews or getting reviews on whatever platform can really matter sometimes. So giving them a 5-star review can be a great way to show appreciation. Just telling them, like, I really appreciate your time. Even if they're not a good fit, even if you're just like therapy shopping, saying thank you, I appreciate your time. You were so sweet, I wish you all the best, and then move on. But I think at the end of the day, the best thing you can do for your provider is take care of yourself and maybe listen. If they asked you to read a book, there might be a good reason for it. And I know it can be hard, but get it on Audible, get it on Libby, read the book. And then if you do have the resources, one, depending on the practice you're working with, another really, really powerful thing could be to pay their full rate or ever so slightly above your rate. And the reason for that is they're most likely offering a sliding scale, which means like a discounted rate to another provider. So if it doesn't hurt you to pay $100 versus $90, that $10 might be the difference for someone else receiving therapy, so they can pay it forward. And that's something we do at DreaVita. So that's another idea.
I think what people maybe don't see, and I think it's interesting because there's so many stories and so many TV shows centered around healthcare workers, right? and what their life is like, behind the scenes, and even like dramatics of it, of like hooking up in the supply closet and like all the drama and taking it home with you. But there really isn't a lot about mental health. We really kind of have like one sort of stereotype that we see in media and in TV. But in the past 10 years, people have been seeking out therapy almost, I think, is 23%. I'm sure it's also with the adaptation of telehealth makes it a lot easier for a lot of people to get more help. But I think also people are seeking health. It's been tough. It's been just tough the past few years. We all went through a pandemic and we forget about that.
Yes.
So there's more of a need out there. And I guess my biggest question is, what is it working in mental health that people just don't understand?
Oh, there's so many answers to that question. I think one of the biggest things is that oftentimes, especially if you're seeing someone in private practice, that person is probably very isolated or doing everything on their own. They're trying to figure out your insurance, their own insurance. They're managing their whole schedule. They're figuring out what happens when 6 patients canceled that day and now they might not be able to pay that bill. They're doing all their own marketing. And I think that like really unglamorous side of it just makes for bad TV. I think when we do see therapists represented on TV, they're these really expensive, way too in your business in an appropriate way, charging $350 an hour private practice people. And they're out there, do your thing, girl. But most people are charging, very affordable rates just so that they can serve their populations that they're committed to. And, they're kind of suffering for that cause, but that's not very convincing TV to see one person on an Excel sheet all day. So I do get it, but it would be nice if more people understood and if there was more resources for providers in those sort of work areas.
Being a therapist and also pursuing acting is kind of similar. Like you have to make your own website. You have to get a headshot. Yeah. Yeah. You have to market yourself. You have to constantly put yourself out there that you're available for things, work for sliding scales. We don't have to submit insurance, but you
do have to find it from Covered California. So
we do. Yeah. Yeah. And if you get to join SAG, then you get to make a certain amount of money or else they kick you off their health insurance. Yeah. So, which I look forward to that opportunity one day when I join SAG.
I can't wait to be kicked off my health insurance from SAG.
Oh, be a privilege. Well, I'm really excited for this season because I feel like that really what we talked about today is, a very like overview of some of the realities of what it's like to work in mental health. But we have a lot of amazing guests and we're going to dive into a lot of specialties, from people who specialize in anxiety and relationships, ring, ring, hello, I would like to talk to them, to sleep issues.
Ooh, EMDR, that's so popular, and I feel like nobody knows what it is. It's like so mysterious.
Yeah, tap, 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 tap.
Yes. Watch my end.
Follow the dot. Bing, 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 bing.
Ooh, ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is something I'm really interested to talk about because we're going to talk about ChatGPT and shame. I have found ChatGPT to be totally pivotal in my anxiety, but I don't want to be wasting a water bottle every time I have a question if everything's going to be okay. And then awooga, we got a sexologist. To come in and we'll talk about relationships. And don't tell her I said awooga, but
she gets it. I think she's cool with most things.
Great. That's true. You have to be if you're a sexologist. I'm really interested to see what we're going to get into and we're going to shed some light on the reality of working in this field.
Yeah, with some of the best people in the field. It's going to be super fun. I can't wait.
Well, we put out episodes weekly. Please make sure to to subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back next week with another specialty that we will be diving very deep into. So that's it for now. Okay, goodbye, Andy.
Bye, Katie.
Goodbye. What Does Your Therapist Really Think is a DreaVita production. If you want to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all the socials, go ahead and do it at DreaVita. Have a question for a future episode? Go ahead and send us a DM. Start your mental health journey today and head to DreaVita.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and send someone this podcast. They might like it. We'll see you next time.